Hi, this is Blake.
Hi, this is Cameron. We welcome you to yet another episode of TrustTalks.
All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving deep into security questionnaires. And with that recent stat, the one that said something like 98% of organizations have worked with a vendor who's had a security breach in the past 2 years. These questionnaires are more important now than ever. They're kind of like a background check, but for security, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, especially now, with data breaches happening more and more often, it's all about trust.
Exactly. Luckily, we've got a great guide to help us navigate this whole world of security questionnaires. The Vendor's Survival Guide to Security Questionnaires by Jiku Venkat. We'll be pulling a lot from his insights. We'll also be looking at DataRobot and how they use this platform TrustCloud to really streamline their process. But first, what exactly are these security questionnaires asking about? It can't just be a couple questions about passwords, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. These questionnaires cover a whole range of areas, and the requesting organization wants to understand each of these areas because they could each be a vulnerability.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some of the main areas Jiku highlights in his guide?
Well, he starts at the foundation, network security. So that's firewalls, intrusion detection systems, all those things that are meant to keep unauthorized people out.
Okay, so making sure the network itself is secure. But then what about all the data that's stored within the network?
Yeah, so that's where data protection comes in. It's everything from encryption, data loss prevention, to how they handle sensitive data and get rid of it. And then there's also access controls. Who has access to what data? How are those permissions managed?
Right, so it's not just about keeping the bad guys out, but also making sure that the right people inside have the right access. Makes sense. What else is on that security questionnaire checklist?
Incident response, that's a big one. How does a company deal with a security breach if one happens? Do they even have a plan? How quickly can they identify the breach and contain it? What do they tell the people affected?
So it's not just about preventing a breach. It's about knowing what to do. IF, a breach happens.
Absolutely. And then you also always have a section about compliance, making sure that the vendor is following all the industry regulations and security standards.
Right, because depending on what industry you're in, there might be very specific requirements about data privacy or financial transactions or healthcare info. It really sounds like a deep dive into every part of a company's security. No wonder these questionnaires can get so long and complicated.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the challenges really begin for the vendors. And Jiku does a great job of laying out these pain points.
Okay, let's talk about them. What are some of the biggest things vendors struggle with when they're dealing with these questionnaires?
Honestly, I'd say the first one is just how many questions there are. Hundreds of questions, sometimes even more. Just trying to read through them all, let alone come up with an answer that makes sense, it's very time-consuming.
Yeah, I bet. It's like being flooded with questions. Where do you even start?
And then the problem gets worse. Because you usually need information from a bunch of different teams and people to answer these questions. You'll probably need to talk to your network security team, your data privacy officer, your compliance manager, all of them, just to get all the information you need.
So you're not even just answering the questions. You're going on this hunt for info.
Exactly. And if you don't have a clear process for this, you're probably going to end up with some mistakes or at least answers that don't really match up, which, that doesn't make a great impression on the people who sent you the questionnaire.
Definitely not. Makes you look unorganized, even if you actually have pretty good security in place.
For sure. And then on top of all that, you have the reporting side of things. If you're just using whatever method comes to mind, pulling data from different places, it's easy to make a mistake.
So what can you do about it? Are we just doomed to a life of spreadsheets and emails?
Jiku has to have some suggestions for us, right? He does, and we'll get to those right after this. Luckily, Jiku doesn't just point out all the hard things in his guide, he also gives some real solutions. And one of the most basic ones he talks about is honesty and transparency.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounds a little counterintuitive. You're saying it's better to just admit where you have weaknesses instead of trying to hide them.
Exactly. It's all about trust. When you're answering these security questions, you have to be upfront about how good your security is, even if there are some things you're still working on.
Right, like saying, hey, we're not perfect, but we're trying our best, and we'll be honest with you about what we're doing.
Exactly. And when you're writing your answers, Jiku says to keep it clear and concise. Avoid all the technical jargon. Get straight to the point. Make sure that the people reading your answers actually understand what you're doing.
Cut through the noise.
Yeah.
Get to what really matters.
And to make sure that your answers are accurate and consistent, GQ recommends actually getting your subject matter experts involved, the people who are the real security experts.
Right, because they're the ones who really know all the details about how your security works.
Exactly. Another thing GQ says is to keep talking to your partners throughout the whole process. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you need clarification. Get their feedback. Make sure everyone knows what's going on.
So you're saying to think of it more as a collaborative effort and less like an interrogation.
Exactly. Now, GQ's guide lays out a great foundation for tackling these security questionnaires. But there's another piece to all of this we should talk about: technology. And for that, I want to bring up this case study about DataRobot.
Okay, let's talk about them. Remind me, who are they and what problems were they having?
DataRobot is a big platform for machine learning and AI. And because they work with so much sensitive data, their clients were very focused on security, which is totally understandable. The problem was DataRobot was doing their security questionnaires manually. Spreadsheets, emails, copy and paste errors, all that fun stuff.
Sounds just like the problems we were talking about before. So how'd they fix it?
Well, they ended up using this platform called TrustCloud, specifically this thing called TrustShare. It uses AI to automate the questionnaire responses.
Interesting. But how did it work for them in the real world? Did it actually help?
It made a huge difference before TrustCloud. It took them an average of 10 business days just to get the internal responses together for one questionnaire.
10 days.
Yeah.
That's longer than some vacations. I can only imagine all the frustration and delays that must have caused.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But after they started using TrustShare, their SLA dropped to 6 hours.
Wow. That's incredible. That's like over 95% faster. What was the magic behind all that improvement?
Automation. TrustShare uses AI to analyze the questionnaires as they come in, match them up with the right info that DataRobot already has, and it can even start filling in some answers.
So it's like having this super efficient security expert.
Yeah.
Just going through all your files and fill out the paperwork for you.
Basically. And it wasn't just about doing it faster, it was more accurate and consistent too. With TrustShare handling the hard stuff, they didn't have to worry about those copy and paste errors. They knew that all the answers were in line with their latest security policies.
So faster responses, and they were more confident in their answers. A double win. But I feel like it's not just about having a fancy new tool. Their mindset must have changed too, right?
Definitely. And this goes back to what GQ was saying about honesty and transparency. DataRobot realized that by being honest about where their security was at, even the parts that weren't perfect yet, it actually helped them build a stronger relationship with their clients.
Because it showed they were taking security seriously and that they wanted to keep improving.
Exactly. And the cool thing is DataRobot didn't stop there. They started using TrustCloud for even more of their security and compliance stuff. They used TrustOps to automate their compliance workflows and TrustRegister to manage their IT risk assessments.
So they just went all in on automation.
Well, when you get results like that,
Yeah.
more efficient, more accurate, less risk, it's easy to see why they'd want to automate as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get too excited about automation, let's think about some of the downsides. Is it possible to rely too much on these AI tools? It's interesting to think about that balance between relying on experts and letting the AI do its thing. But let's talk more about those AI tools. We talked about DataRobot and TrustCloud. But what are some other ways AI is changing these security questionnaires?
One big thing is these dynamic security portals that GQ talks about. They're becoming more and more common.
Dynamic security portals. What are those? Is it like having a security guard online all the time?
Not exactly. It's more like you're giving people a direct look into how you handle security. Like imagine a website where you can put all your security certifications, attestations, all your compliance reports.
Oh, okay. So instead of waiting for someone to send you a questionnaire, you're basically showing everyone how secure you are right from the start.
Exactly. And the best part is they're dynamic. So they're pulling information straight from your system, so everything's always up to date.
That's pretty smart. It saves everyone time, and it makes sure that everything matches up. Seems like a great way to build trust right away.
Right. And GQ actually suggests that. If you're proactive like that, you might actually get fewer questionnaires.
Oh, interesting. Because if a potential partner can already see that you're taking security seriously, they might not even bother with the whole questionnaire thing.
Exactly. And that leads us to another cool way AI can help: streamlining all that internal collaboration. Remember how we were talking about how hard it is to gather information from all those different teams and experts?
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a huge waste of time.
Well, AI can help with that too. There are platforms now that use AI to send the questionnaires to the right people.
Yeah.
keep track of how things are going, and even help those people communicate with each other.
So instead of having a million emails going back and forth, you got this one system that keeps everything organized and moving forward. That sounds amazing for anyone who's ever had to deal with one of these questionnaires.
It can definitely help. And it all goes back to finding that balance between automation and human expertise. These AI tools can handle a lot of the busy work, but you still need humans for the thinking and the decision-making.
Right. Because at the end of the day, this is about protecting real data and real people. It's not just about the technical stuff, it's about the human side of it too.
Exactly. And I think that's an important takeaway for everyone listening. As we start using more and more AI and automation for security, it's really important to remember that technology is just a tool. It can help us, but it can't replace human judgment and thinking and ethics.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this deep dive into security questionnaires, I think the main thing to remember is they're a really important part of doing business today, but they don't have to be a nightmare. If we follow the best practices, use AI to our advantage, and work together as humans and technology, we can handle this whole process much more effectively, and we can all feel more secure in this digital world. Thanks for joining us, and remember, security is a journey, not a destination. Stay safe out there.